it's DRJ. Let's get it poppin'. This movie is based on a man who spread kindness through generations, the host of the longest running children's show, teaching kids how to deal with their emotions, about morals and ethics, and touched on issues that normally weren't discussed with kids, such as divorce, disabilities, war, segregation, and even bullying, before that was a major term.
Hello, neighbor.
That's right, I'm talking about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Sorry, I can't even say the movie title without singing the song. It's very catchy. This movie honors Fred Rogers, or Mr. Rogers, of the iconic show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Tom Hanks stars as Fred Rogers, and the movie is based on the 1998 Esquire magazine article, Can You Say Hero? By Tom Janot, who is played by Matthew Rhys of the FX show The Americans. Susan Kelechi Watson is also in this movie from This Is Us, from my This Is Us fans out there. And Chris Cooper, also in the movie, has quite an extensive acting resume. The director, Marielle Heller, has said that she loves doing stories about humans trying to navigate through the world. So this is a perfect movie for her. Let's get into the movie. One thing to note, this is not a biopic, so we're not going to really learn about Mr. Rogers' life. The movie is more about Junid and the impact that Mr. Rogers had on his life when he was interviewing Mr. Rogers and getting to know him, and them ultimately establishing that friendship together. Now we do get to see Tom Hanks as Mr. Rogers, which his performance was great. You don't expect anything less because it's Tom Hanks, but they really paid attention to each and every detail, which if you watched the show growing up, you're definitely going to be pleased. Tom Hanks is Mr. Rogers. So Tom Hanks learned about the story, them, deciding to do this movie about 10 years ago, and read the script 8 years ago. So what does that tell us? That they've been working on this movie for a long time. And part of that is because they've worked closely with Mr. Rogers' estate, including his wife Joanne, which I feel is so important because if you're gonna do a movie about a person, whether they're alive or deceased, it's so important to talk with their family and friends to get an accurate portrayal of the person and to really have a good storyline. I think that's great that they really took their time to honor Mr. Rogers. So overall, the acting from pretty much everyone was wonderful. I think that they all did a great job. There was great cast chemistry. There was some drama. There was funny moments, a couple different elements, and they did a great job. I really loved the opening scene. It set the tone for the storyline, as well as going back to it at the end, wrapped it up really nicely, so I thought that was really cool. Alright, technical stuff. I loved the transitions. I felt very immersed into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for the scenes that they were talking about the show, but I also felt I got an inside look into Junid's life on the scenes that were more about him. Another thing, I am a stickler for time periods, so if your movie or show is set in the 70s, there should not be a car from the 90s or an iPhone in any of the shots. So this movie did a great job making sure that they paid attention to those details, from the clothing, the communication, the technology, of course, so I really appreciated that. So for me, the pacing was a little slow at times. There were a couple scenes that dragged along and kind of lost my attention. Now, this may be intentional. If you ever watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, the show was very gentle and calming and patient. It wasn't a very fast-paced show. I mean, it was catered towards kids who are trying to grasp those life lessons, so maybe they wanted you to really feel like you were a part of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I loved the nostalgia of the movie. It was a wonderful experience just being in the theater. People, you could hear them humming along or outwardly singing along to the songs, and the oohs and the ahs of things that reminded them of the show or their childhood. And probably my favorite thing was just the smiles from everyone between, you could feel it in the theater and as well as we were leaving. People of all ages, from very young to, older generations, really left the movie feeling happy and feeling kind. So overall, the movie was very touching, full of lessons such as treating each other well, embracing imperfections, and forgiveness. Also, taking the time to interact with the people around us, not always rushing and thinking only about ourselves, but really interacting with the people who may be right next to us, because you never know what the person is going through. Especially now, I feel like we're always on our phones. I mean, I'm guilty of it, of course, as well. But we interact more on social media and with people virtually than we do with the people that are actually physically present with us. So on a scale of 1 to 5, I give it a... I would have liked to learn more about Fred Rogers and the impact that the show had on his life. Also, how he always remained positive and upheld his Christian beliefs, which he was very open about. And his family, his wife, his kids. The show was on the air from 1968 to 2001, more than 900 episodes. That's a large part of his life, as well as his family. Also, as I mentioned before, there were a couple scenes that kind of dragged, a little bit slower pace, but that's probably just my preference. Nonetheless, I highly recommend you go see A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. It hits theaters November 22nd, and it's a perfect movie to see with family and friends of all ages. By the end of it, you'll just all want to have a big group hug. Alright, I hope it's a beautiful day in your neighborhood, and won't you be my subscriber? Hit the subscribe button down below, like, comment, and share with a friend. You can also follow me on Instagram at DieraJ. Stay posted for upcoming TV and movie reviews, conversation, and giveaways. Thanks for watching.